Welcome back to another episode of the Strength and Speed Podcast. I'm your host, Strength and Speed owner, Evan Preparis. And I've got a guest with me on the line, though. Before we get to him, though, quick word from this episode's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Yolked. If you're looking for a nutritional product that has clinical trials over 3 times the reported muscle growth, you can check out Yolked. They taste super good. It's fertilized egg yolk made into a powder. You can sprinkle it on your yogurt, add it into your protein shake, or just eat it straight out of the packet. I like the last version, just eating it straight out of the packet. It tastes really good. If you've been to Savage Race, you may have had a couple samples of it. And if you want to order some, you can use code STRENGTH20, and that code is always good for 20% off. All right, let's get to today's guest. Joining me, I have Joshua Quayhagen. Joshua, say hi.
What's up, brother? How's it going, man?
Good. Josh is a pretty big name, and I'm really excited to have him on. He is the current welterweight champion for Karate Combat, full contact karate tournament that's airs on YouTube. So we're going to get to some of his background. We're going to talk about what Karate Combat is, talk about crossover points with obstacle racing, and he's got a major fight coming up. We wanted to get him on the podcast and talk to him about that. And, so he's got some other pretty interesting backstories. So, Josh, why don't we start off just telling us a little bit about who you are and kind of how you ended up into the world of full contact karate fighting.
Yeah, man. So I grew up in martial arts. I kind of learned to walk in the dojo, so to speak. My dad's a black belt. Both my grandparents are black belts. So it was kind of in the blood. Just always doing it, always training. I can almost refer every moment of my life to what belt I was or what championship I was trying to win, at least in karate. Well, then I got into, as I got a little older, I fell in love with football and played college football. Kind of got away from it a little bit, but always competed pretty regularly. And then so got into MMA. There was really no professional karate league that I could do. So I was just jumping into MMA. MMA was getting big. It was probably 2011 maybe, or a little bit earlier. I got started in MMA. Did that for some years, and so I opened up a gym 2011 too, to pretty much kind of do what you're doing, just do what I love to do, train people to do martial arts. So got going and started out pretty good, my MMA career and the business doing well. And as I kind of pushed more and more and try to have higher goals, I realized how hard it was to do both. So probably around 2017, 2018, I realized I was going to have to put one aside. I wasn't going to be able to fight at the level I wanted to fight at, compete with all the jiu-jitsu and the grappling. I'd taught martial arts pretty regularly, so I had the striking pretty not down. You always got to get better. But I was just having some trouble kind of meeting all the boxes for MMA. I was having to bring in people and having to go places to train, outsourcing some training because I just wasn't a big grappler. And so I had to make the decision whether I was going to keep the gym and or keep the career, and I put my MMA career aside. Kind of felt like that's what I was called to do. I did it begrudgingly, maybe is a good word. I prayed about it and felt like God was sharing or telling me that I had a lot of people in my gym, a lot of cool stories. People would come over, come out of addiction. Some families kind of brought together. In fact, we had one family that was really started at the gym. They met in the gym. They had fell in love, got married, had kids. We had a gym family. It was just a lot of people that were affected by the gym, and I felt like I couldn't let them down. I couldn't let that go. So I put my career aside and kept the gym rolling and pushed into it. I was dating who is the woman who's now my wife. She helped me, and we kind of got it back on track. And then maybe about a year and a half later, a friend calls, the guy I competed against karate with my whole life, and he calls and says, "Hey, you wanna go to Budapest and fight in a full contact karate match?" And I was like, well, of course, free trip to Budapest. I was like, man, and I'd still train pretty regularly. I have an MMA fight team out of my gym, so I was still training. I'm the striking coach, so I stay striking all the time. And it was just almost when I got there and I saw it and I heard about it, it was all new. It was literally the first time ever. It's called Genesis. It was the first fight ever. They were just adopted. It was pretty big scale even at that point. They had pretty awesome money. We fought in this crazy pit. I just fell in love, and almost in that moment, I feel like God put it on my heart, or just kind of showed me. I thought I was putting myself aside for other people, and maybe I was a little bit, but God had something bigger for me, and so I thought it was really cool. It was almost like this is what I was meant to be. If I'd have kept doing MMA, I'd have never even considered doing it, and now I'm the world champion. It's really cool. My gym's doing well, and so that's kind of my karate combat birth story, man. It's been a pretty awesome journey.
Yeah, that's wild. So I want to jump into a little bit more about karate combat and what it is specifically for our listeners who may not be tracking. But I want to jump back in time real quick to MMA career. So in an obstacle coursing, our sport, people are always trying to the money opportunities are fleeting, and it's really not enough to do it full time, right? Like you need to have a side career or something else going. So talk to me a little bit real quick about pro MMA and like, because I think people hear the word pro MMA and they picture, oh, well, Conor McGregor's rolling around in millions of dollars there. And it's like, well, yeah, there's a lot of levels, like,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
what does like pro MMA look like at the earliest levels or whatever level you eventually reached?
Yeah, so man, you're hitting it right on the cue. Man, you're not gonna be. You can say you're a pro fighter, but I mean, it's just basically you go to a level where you're getting paid,
Yeah.
but it's not gonna pay the bills um, for quite a long time. Teaching and you private training, and I would say even up into the UFC. A lot of the guys that are even in the UFC, the lower scale UFC, have other jobs. So I was almost funding my career to be a pro fighter through the gym. It was kind of almost they were kind of interchanging. So that's kind of what I meant. I almost like to go and man, it's a hard man. It sounds just like OCR. Man, you go and you're traveling and the training and the work you're putting in. I mean, it's full time, but you're not going to get a full time pay.
That's
The
right.
money, the money's going to be kind of few and far between, and there are big paydays. When you get in, maybe you get a good fighter or something like that. But it's still, it just gets you to the next one. So it's a tricky thing. It's something that I have lots of people come into the gym and say, I want to be a pro fighter. And the first thing I'm going to ask them is like, well, cool, don't quit your day job. Do you have a job? Because you're not going to be getting paid doing this for a very, very, very long time in terms of being able to take care of yourself, especially ones with guys with families and stuff like that. So, man, it's a tough road. Um, it's passion driven. It's a hobby that you could get paid for, but it's not going to pay your bills for up until the top 2 or 3% of it of these athletes.
Yeah, no, absolutely good points there. So yeah, you mentioned a friend reached out about karate combat, and again, that also sounds like OCR. A lot of times we'll find out about like like obstacle course racing's been on TV a couple times, usually in like a game show type of format. And a lot of times I found out about that stuff through personal channels where it's like, hey, this producer reached out to person X who knows the obstacle course racing community, and then it spreads throughout the community like, oh, you should apply for the show, whether it be Broken Skull Ranch or Million Dollar Mile, two of the ones that have been on TV that only lasted a couple seasons, but American Ninja Warrior's been on we're up to seasons. We just filmed season 16, so that one's been on for a while. So people generally know where that one is and where to go and get connected into that one. But let's talk about Karate Combat. Explain to people who've never seen it, and for those of you who haven't seen it, it's available for free on YouTube, and that's how I found it because I refused to pay for UFC because it was really expensive.
I understand.
And,
Yep.
and then I was like, oh, this is great. I was like, this is free. This is amazing. So like I stumbled onto it after kind of picking up martial arts a little bit later in life. So explain to people what the rules are and kind of what it looks like. Yeah.
Man, I think if you should check it out. It's awesome. I think, especially if you are an MMA fan, and you're maybe an MMA fan who gets a little frustrated when things go to the ground and they kind of stall out, and maybe there's a lot of wrestling. Obviously, I'm in the game and I can understand that, and I get it, and I'm a fan of even that, the grappling. But for the most part, so basically, it's based off the sport karate rules, just in a full contact league. So you can do well. Now they've added knees in, and they're making it. It's almost completely MMA without the submissions. So you can take down, and if you take down and you remain up, like a sweep or you stay up, you got 5 seconds of ground and pound, and then they'll stand you back up. And that's kind of a play off the sport karate rule where you can take down and follow up and score somebody on the ground. You get hit and you'll get a point or 3 points. It depends on which organization you're for. So you can score when somebody goes to the ground, or you can take them down. So there are some sweeps and takedowns, and with some 5 seconds of ground and pound, then it's back up. But other than that, it's knees, punches, kicks. We fight in gi pants and a belt, no shirt, no shin, just basically MMA gloves. And it's pretty much like I don't know if you how many old school karate fans you got in here, but man, it almost reminds me of blood sport. Honestly, the pit we fight in, it really a really cool kind of almost an MMA version of karate. You have to be a black belt in karate. It's really some of the highest level karate practitioners all over, and some of them have gone to MMA. And I think a lot of guys, especially guys like me, that are now funneling back now. Obviously wrestling is king in MMA. If somebody can take you down and hold you down, your roundhouse kicks, your skills, your striking skills, they're null. And so that gets frustrating, at least, obviously for a striker. So it really kind of alleviates that, and you get to come in, you get to really spend a lot of time doing what you want. There's we're fighting in a pit wall. It's got 45-degree edges. You could jump off of it sideways, and really it's built around, I believe, just having fun striking. You can kick a punch, and of course it's you're looking for knockouts. It's pretty intense in terms of the power, and very similar to MMA in terms of the striking.
Yeah, no, the striking's great. It's absolutely great to watch. It's exciting, and the pit is it's just kind of a cool visual. Those slanted sides, and then occasionally guys will use the edge of the pit to do jumping kicks and stuff like that off it, which is pretty interesting to watch. So definitely check it out if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's a cool new dynamic, and things, as it's going. So there's maybe 2018, so maybe 5 years old, and now, so immediately when I came home, I started assembling my own pit wall. So I've got a chance to play on it, but more and more, as guys get into it and it gets bigger and bigger, you're going to start seeing some dynamic moves off the pit wall, because it really does kind of create a super unique dynamic. It's better than jumping off the cage wall. You have a little bit more lift with that 45. It's harder. So you can get some spring, man. There's some cool stuff that's coming. That I know that's just on the verge of kind of popping up. Raymond Daniels, if anybody's a big fight fan, Karate Combat just signed him maybe a year ago, and he's known as the human highlight reel. He's got some of the greatest knockouts in kickboxing and MMA history, and so he's in the game. So I mean, he's going to raise the level of the technical diversity of strikes and stuff like that, man. So it's going to be, there's only more to come. So I'm excited about it, even as a fan.
Yeah, he's super entertaining to watch. I was really enjoying a couple of his fights. He's pretty up. He's getting up there in age too, and he's still throwing down pretty hard.
Yeah,
and he looks good too. He looks really good.
He looks sharp, man. He really does. And he's in my division, so obviously got my eye on him. In fact, my next opponent is the only one that's beat him in the pit. So Rafael Aga, he's the what we call the karate goat. He is the best sport karate person of all time. Got the most awards, and I mean, he's legit. He's the only guy that's beat Raymond. So that's who I'll be stepping in there next with.
Yeah, I want to talk about that fight in a second, but first, let people know what your Karate Combat record is currently.
So I am 6-2 actually. So I lost really my first one after the very first one. Fell in love, kind of got in there overly confident, and got knocked out, got floored, and so then I got to work, and I was kind of plugging. I was hitting them. Was like, don't you decide who's the welterweight, who's going to be that welterweight championship yet? So I ended up going on a little 2-fight win streak, beating the best guys that I felt like were in the league. So I honestly convinced them to do a 4-man tournament. Right? They were going to still pick 2 other ones to do the first inaugural welterweight championship, and I convinced them that they weren't ready. I said, you need to do a 4-man tournament and get me in. And so I ended up getting in and winning it. And I was the first welterweight ever still holding it. And the only other fight I've lost is the last one. It was a super fight. I went versus the lightweight champ. It was a champ versus champ match. And lost a close decision.
I'm gonna jump in there. So that was actually the last fight I watched, and I actually stopped watching for a while because of that fight. 'Cause you destroyed him in rounds 4 and 5, and like I was like, I'm pretty sure you at least won one of the first three, and then they
I
gave the
thought.
decision to him, and I was visibly I looked more upset than you did on TV, and I was like, what in the this is bull, and I was like, all right, I'm done for now. So yeah,
Yeah, so I really like what they do, and this is where I really think they missed it. I understand you can't leave it in the judge's decision. I felt I felt like I won the fight, maybe not the match. There was, it's a 10-point must system like boxing, and some things happen. But when there's a split decision or any kind of non-majority decision or non-unanimous decision, there's a chance for a extra round. And I thought for sure that they should have given us that one, and if they'd have given us that one, I would have would have finished him. I know, and so they didn't give us that extra round. That's where I was most upset. But of course, it was all good. No worries. I didn't lose my belt. He didn't lose his. But yes, I agree. It was a tough decision, tough one to take. But you live, you learn, and you hold the cards to not let the judges make the
yeah.
decision. So I'm not tripping, but ready. That one's fired me up for this one. Who's this is a bigger match, and now my focus is all on the next one.
Yeah, so let's talk about that one. When is it? Where can people watch? Tell us a little bit more about your opponent, etc.
Cool. So it's June 24th. It is so it's in Miami. If you're near Miami, you should go. I've been fought. So I fought for Bellator. I've been to some UFC events. Fought in all kinds of MMA venues and things like this. I'm not sure. I don't think that there is a better venue or a place to watch a fight than Karate Combat. Just a party. It's exciting. It's unique. There's no cage. You're right by the fight. It's just really cool. So if you're near Miami, you should check it out. June 24th. Like you said, you can also watch it on YouTube and karate.com. So there's also that they have a Karate Combat app that you can get, and as soon as you get it, they give you tokens, and you can actually um, basically wager your tokens on fighters, and you can build up more tokens. And honestly, that helps you vote. And honestly, I believe that that's even a majority of ownership in the company. It's pretty crazy the unique things they're doing with some cryptocurrencies. So man, you could really dive in, and they're pretty advanced in a bunch of different ways. Things that are far beyond very simple-minded myself. But it's really really cool. Karate.com, YouTube, and the app are I think the main streaming sources. But I think they allow any streaming source. You can stream it any which way you want, and they're just really trying to get it out there. They're focused on their kind of crypto things. Like I said, there's a lot of more smarter marketing people behind it than me. But man, there's just tons of ways to watch it, and it's always free.
Yeah, and it was good. Some of the earlier seasons they had like essentially green screen, and they created these like wild digital backdrops. So if you're watching from your home, you're like, I mean, it looked absolutely crazy, like floating. They're floating above, you
It was
know,
crazy, dude. I fought in a
giant
couple
pits
of
fighting
them.
in space and stuff. Time travel. It was pretty
It
wild.
was nuts, man. And I tell you what was even crazier. So those were great to watch. Those were super weird to fight in because it was literally a big warehouse with just green sheets completely around that. We were basically fighting in a green building. It looked not a whole lot of people around. The way it turns out looks so cool. The way we were fighting, it almost feels like we were just kind of in a warehouse with, you know, uh, just a whole bunch of like selling some green blankets or something. It was just kind of crazy.
Yeah, and for fight fans, they have like Boss Rutan and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and GSP have been on, sideline announcers and kind of interactive at various points throughout the past couple seasons. So some big names in there that people are familiar with from the MMA world.
Yeah, some of the coolest ninjas in the world. It's cool to just even get to meet and hang out with those guys. I've become a pretty good friend, and obviously I've always been a big fan of Boss Rutan. But
Yeah,
man,
legend.
yeah, he's awesome. We text every now and then. Well, I'll go see him and do some different things with him. So I'm also a brown belt in Bang Muay Thai, which is Dwayne Ludwig's style of Muay Thai, and Dwayne studied under Boss Rutan, so he's basically the sensei to the sensei
Mm.
in Muay Thai. So just really cool, just to get to spend some time with him. He is every bit as cool as you would expect him to be in person.
Nice. Talk to me a little bit about your training. let's say like let's talk a little bit about off-season training, or like yeah, I don't have a fight coming up in the next couple of months, and then when does it switch into fight specific prep, and then take me through like what that looks like.
So, I'm constantly sharpening into this, day to day, and that's nice because I do run the gym and own the gym and teach striking every day. I have my own guys, even if I don't have a fight. I have guys that are preparing for fights. So we're constantly sharpening, and we're trying to work on the mental game and even, the spiritual and mental side of it too. We do Bible studies, man. So there's this constant sharpening that I think as you know, OCR, you can't get too far out of your um, killer mode.
Right.
And that's always existed. If I had to say it, kind of explain it into a schedule. So twice a week, I want to get to that, what I call the dark place. I want to get uncomfortable. I want to get to the place where I want to quit and have to keep going. So if I can, anytime, twice a week, I'm doing that. So a lot of times it's a Saturday workouts. We kind of have some OCR guys too. And so we get into those long runs, hour and a half workouts with lots of obstacles, lots of work, lots of
Hmm.
kettlebells, movements, just basically at that place where you want to throw up. I try to at least once a week, but almost always twice a week. I'll get there. And when I get into camp mode, really to be honest, that thing doesn't really change. I stay pretty consistent 2 or 3 times a week, but then I'll just really ramp up the other stuff, the cardio. Um, and really a lot more live work with my coach. So I am the head coach where I am at. I now have a boxing coach, a striking coach, lives about an hour away. So I'll travel 2, 3 times a week to go see him. He'll come see me. So it really kind of tightens everything down. So I like to stay always in that battle ready shape almost all the time. I've gotten out of it before, and I just find that it's tough to get back into it. But um, so I'm always finding ways to be uncomfortable, even if I'm not in fight mode or in fight camp. But then when it gets into camp mode, I take all that energy that I should have and built up, and I just want to focus it on maybe a certain few different tasks. Whether it's straightening out my punches, more punch cardio, a certain little feet working segment where I know that this is going to be something that'll offset theirs. I'll just kind of take a few things and just sharpen it. I love Bruce Lee's quote. I don't fear the man that practices 1,000 kicks once. I fear the man that practices one kick 1,000 times.
Hmm.
So get build the tank, build the gas up all the time, and then when it gets into fight mode, I'm going to take that gas tank and I'm going to just try to rep out maybe 3 to 5 things in terms of whether it's a skill or even a certain move or a certain combination or even just maybe just working my boxing specifically or maybe my kicks specifically. But I'm going to take 3 or 4 things depending on the opponent, and I'm just going to try to um, kill those things and sharpen those things so I can be really good.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you mentioned going to the dark place kind of twice a week, and for a lot of endurance or cardio training, that's essentially what we recommend with the VO2 max and lactic threshold workout. So two of your workouts a week are typically hard slash uncomfortable slash, at some point I'm like, I don't want to do this week. Um,
Yeah.
so that's
Well, that's
and
no, 'cause
go for it.
I was just gonna say that's good to know. I love to hear some other people and maybe some science backing things because I
Yeah.
do as much research. But that's yeah, cool. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And then on top of that, like mentally, you can't go into the deepest, darkest place every workout, right? Like it's exhausting, right? Like it's just not something feasible that you can do. Nor does your body respond well to that. If I'm
Yeah,
maxing out at every single workout, right? It's just your body doesn't adapt. That's not the way the human body develops, um, cardiovascular capability. It's not the way it develops muscle memory. And, if you're doing these like super hard workouts, a lot of times your form starts to degrade, start to break down, right? And
yeah.
if I'm practicing with shitty form, then, I'm going to build bad reps, like as the Bruce Lee quote was saying, right? So cool. So how early in advance of a fight do you start kind of like dialing things into like the fight specific stuff?
So I think 8 weeks is probably the best or the most common. If I can, 10 weeks. If I know if I have the opponent. I mean, most of the time I'll kind of start knowing when I want to fight, and I know the schedule, and so I'll know when it's coming. But I think 8 weeks is really the the focus point where, all right, I'm in camp mode where things change. I'm not gonna drink any beer. My diet's gonna change. Everything's gonna start revolving around the war mode discipline. And so that's where I like to kind of stay in that 8 week mark. This one, it's one of my simple. I wanted to start early. It's a bigger fight. It's the biggest fight of my life. So I started maybe even a little bit earlier than 10 weeks. But said, you want to peak at the right time. You want to be sharp at the right time. Just like you said, the more I get excited about fights, the more I do want to turn it up, and then you get that fatigue spot. You kind of get that lull in your action. So I want to be kind of sharp mentally too. So there's some times in there that I sometimes I'll just take a few days off, and I'll just I'll rest for those few days, especially spend some time with my family. I have 3 little girls, 3 little precious angels. So kind of just take some time with them and just spend a couple days with them and almost forget about the fight. Literally just not. It's hard, obviously, but I'll just let it all go, and then I'll get back. And man, I love coming back after that. Those few days right after usually are some of my sharpest days. Almost because I go in real humble, thinking, "Oh crap, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have." Almost always same thing. Like, oh, I shouldn't have took that break. I'm gonna come back. I'm not gonna be in great shape. I'm not gonna be ready. And man, I don't know why, but I always feel really good and do really well after that break. So it's
Yeah, I
pretty
mean,
cool.
your body gets better in the recovery from the stress during the training, right? So that's scientifically, I mean, it makes sense. You come back stronger, and again, mentally, obviously, that plays a large role too. It plays a large role in fighting. It plays a large role in obstacle course racing, right? Lining up, competing against other guys. Talk to me about just kind of the mental preparation or your mindset kind of going into any of these karate combat fights.
So, without the physical, going to the dark place too, I have those a couple times a week, but like I always take cold showers. So I try to anytime I can where if I know something's maybe a little healthier, but it's maybe a little bit more miserable. It's not too bad here in the South Louisiana heat in the summertime, but especially wintertime, training camps, the cold shower is brutal. So, anytime I do that, there's times where I'll just sleep on the floor. I think that we function a little better and struggle this past year, and really the year that I won the championship. You might hear my little daughter who just creeped into the room with me. So I have also a 10-month-old. So sleep is something that I don't get a lot of. Me and my wife kind of take turns off and on waking up with our little girl who's a chunk. She doesn't miss a meal, so she's gonna wake up every 3 hours to get her food, or her whatever she's gonna be taking in. That's been kind of tough, but I'll even say if I could do a quick little testimony on that. My second one, my middle child, was very much the same way. She woke up quite a bit, and the day before that 4-man tournament I told you about to fight to be in the championship, it was potentially supposed to be 2 fights in 2 days. We ended up having a gap in between because the other side, that the winner, got hurt in his match, so we had to put it off. But that before that fight, the first fight, 2 days before, I couldn't sleep at all, which is kind of crazy. 2 days before, usually the night before the fight, I can't sleep much. I get excited, and that's not always optimal, but still. So 2 days before, I couldn't sleep. Sorry, Alexa's screaming at us. 2 days before, I couldn't sleep, so I was like, all right, cool, weight cut day. I'm gonna cut weight, and I'm gonna finally crash the night before I fight. I'm gonna get some good sleep. So I'm fighting sleep all the way through. Want to sleep all that whole day, take a nap, but no, I'm not gonna do it. Get to weight, make weight, go eat, ready to go home and crash, or go to the hotel and crash. And again, for whatever reason, I just can't sleep. So I probably got 3 hours of sleep the 2 nights before. My to the day was my biggest fight to that day. So I was freaking out a little bit that next day. I was kind of praying and kind of being in my meditation place, just kind of trying to get the mind ready. It just got kind of put on my heart. I feel like the Spirit just told me, "Hey, look, you got a 12-month-old. You got a baby that hasn't slept in a year. You haven't slept in a year. You've been functioning off 3 hours of sleep on weeks many times." So it really almost kind of gave me confidence. Like I'd been doing this. So now again with another baby, doing the same thing where I'm training as hard as I can. That last fight when I fought Rosha that you watched, I was right after she was born, so I had some injuries because I wasn't getting the sleep in. But man, those things, when things go wrong, I know my next opponent. He's got a good. He's a millionaire. He's got a nutritionist. He's got, man. He's at that level where he's got everything planned out for him. And I feel like that's a downfall for him. He's not living in the struggle. He's not,
Yeah,
going below the yard on his only day off. He's not getting 6 hours of sleep some 2-3 days in a row. Total. So
it's the whole Rocky Three. It's like
yeah,
what Rocky Three
man.
was all about, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So embracing the struggle. I love that even
Yep,
the scripture, Paul says, take joy in the struggle. I mean, we obviously understand it, it running and training for your OCRs, it's the uncomfortable that makes you stronger. And that's
absolutely.
where the endurance comes from. So man, I really have so many little things now, little babies that keep me up, that, want little things and running a business and all these things like that, where I used to stress about it, and now I look at it all as a joy. I
Yeah,
think these are all things that help me fight better and be ready for anything that could possibly happen in that field. So these are a little bit of the things that I like to just even embrace more in camp mode.
yeah, yeah. It's fun. It's funny to hear like all those, sometimes you see someone on TV or you see someone on, in you forget they're like real people with all the normal struggles and all the normal life happenings, and I think everyone there's a lot of people who pull in on obstacle will put races off, be like, well, this is not a good year because of X, Y, or Z. And like honestly, I found that almost like there's always something that's coming up, right? Like I always have some.
Always.
Oh, I got. I'm still active in the military, right? So I've moved several times during my like racing quote unquote career. So like my wife's like, "Are we really gonna do a race in the middle of a move?" I was like, "Yeah, it's fine. Like it's a quick. We're just down for the weekend. We'll be back." And she's like, "You're ridiculous." I was like, eh. So yeah, just the
Yeah, it's cool. I love it. You're right on, man. I think it's the obstacle is the way. It's not in the way. That just but it's one of my favorite books. But I think it's right onto the OCR. It's the obstacle that makes you better. It ain't just a run. It ain't just the easy road. It is
yeah.
it's the obstacle. So I've learned to embrace that, especially as I've gotten older, and I've stressed out about things that I don't want to. I want to just take joy in spending time with my little girls, even though uh, on my calendar in this moment I had a 6 mile run penciled in, or what, but my little girl calls in for sick, and calls and is homesick, and my wife's got to go to work, things like that. I'm not gonna complain. I did at times, but man, I'm just gonna take joy in all those little things, and then I do think that makes us better.
So you've mentioned OCR a couple times. Have you actually run any by
Yeah,
any
yeah,
chance?
quite a bit. We have a pretty good little challenge team, we call them, and,
Okay.
and so little Spartans and things like that. So I used to even so there's one local one here, it's like called Reality Challenge. So
Okay.
um and so I have a gym, like I said, so we have a pretty big fitness group, and so we have some obstacles that we
Love
have
it.
built and we have at our gym, and so we took it as a challenge. As a CrossFit was big, there's lots of gyms. There was a little track team gym, so I challenged them, and I'm just a competitor. So I said, hey, look, we're gonna do this, so I want to win it. So that you had a 10-person team, and fastest time. So we won it like 4 or 5 years in a row, and like people were
Nice.
training, they were recruiting and getting other things, but we spend all year in the struggle a little bit. We do train very much like it for it, and so I wanted a couple years specific, just me individually, but more importantly, we were taking my normal people. I know one year they got some of the track athletes and some other to try to beat us, and I was taking my 50-year-old guys and my 40-year-old women that work out here, and we were still beating them because we just we just live it. We live it. It's not we're not just we of course we turned it on when it was coming closer, but we train it. In fact, we do a little our own little dragoon version. It's called dragoon. We do our own little finisher. We got a couple little obstacle things. Hurricane Laura hit us in 2020. We haven't done it since then, but we'll get back to it. And once we get everything completely rebuilt and everything, we'll do it again. But man, we do our own thing, man. I love that. I love
Love
that
it.
obstacle challenge, man. It's just really cool, and the whole what I really love is it's that kind of like for me, I get to see that in a fight. I get to
Mm,
go over, I get to go through all this, but most people ain't gonna sign up to fight. But I think most people should not to fight, but to do to do obstacle course race, to challenge yourself, to go through uncomfortable, to look up at an obstacle and think, oh, I can't do this, and then force yourself to do it, or have the team around you that hold you accountable to do it, and then get to the other side. Man, I can't tell you how many people I've just seen just lighten up after something that they just absolutely knew they couldn't do is what they were thinking, and then we crush it, or it crushes us, and we made it through it, whatever it is.
right.
Man, it's my favorite thing to see people overcome their mind, really, and most of the time that might be a 30-foot cargo net.
Yeah. Yeah. I find the contrast is what gives me a lot of happiness, right? Like I enjoy spending time with my wife and kids more when I've also had a contrast of like crawling through mud for 8 hours like I was 2 weekends ago, right? Like or training really hard in like a martial arts gym and then
Yeah.
coming back home to my family. Like that contrast is it reminds me of how good the good times are. And I feel like over the course of my military career and then my obstacle course racing career and more recently some of my martial arts stuff, like that I need for me personally, I need that contrast to really be able to like enjoy things fully. I just think like food tastes better, things smell better, spending time with your loved ones feels better. It's just yeah, yeah, good
Nah,
stuff.
man, you hit it right on the head. People ask me all the time. It's like, so they call me the preacher in karate combat, and I do some youth pastoring here. I mean, I'm a big Jesus follower, and I'm all about peace and love. And people are like, how can you reconcile this? You fight people for a living. It's like, man, so I compete, and we compete in a very unique, weird way. I guess it doesn't look like maybe how Jesus would compete. But man, I'm such a much more peaceful person. Like you can't get you. I don't outside of maybe trying to attack or steal one of my babies. I don't think you could even get me into a fight outside of the gym, the dojo, or the pit. It's just I have so much peace and so much calmness in life because of what the chaos that I voluntarily go through. So when it comes in life, it's just a little bit. It's like, oh man, do this weekly. This is a normal Tuesday. So
Awesome. So you jumped right into my next question without me prompting you. So I was going to ask you, your nickname is the preacher. So you said you got that primarily. Is it primarily for the youth pastoring you've done, or was there
yeah,
another?
so well, I was just to be honest, I didn't. They picked the nickname for me. They were just kind of asked at the very first. They loved the nickname thing, and so everybody's got a nickname. So they were just asking me about it. I was just telling them about my normal week. So I told them I was a youth pastor. I do some things and kind of goes through some different things like that. And they just next thing I know, they were calling me the preacher. But
Nice.
I like it. It's not what I probably would have picked, but I love what it's made me become. Like I feel like it makes me want to embody that more. It makes me want to walk in that light more. So uh,
Yeah.
I'm all
Yeah.
for it.
You got to live it. You got once it's the nickname, you got to live up to it.
That's right. Yeah,
The
yeah,
pressure.
exactly. That's right. So it man, it's nice too. I kind of boast in my weakness. I kind of do the same thing. I feel like this next fight, I feel like God's got something to say. The last fight, I, I, I felt like I get to give glory to God, win or lose. It was one of those things that, I had a lot of people holler at me after. It was like, man, you should have won that fight. I felt like you should have been more upset, but the way you responded was so inspiring to me. And to be honest,
Yeah.
that's where I was. I just wanted to make sure that because at that point I'd been on like maybe a 5-fight win streak, and I'd got to give glory to God in every victory, and it was kind of humbling for me to like, hey, it didn't work out. It wasn't my plan. Of course, I was wanting to win and fighting to win, but man, I'm still so blessed. Like it was just like you couldn't take my. I just wanted everybody to know you can't steal my joy. Even bad decision, you can't take it from me. I'm still good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, so what's interesting about karate combat is one, the international field they have versus like I know when like UFC first started, and even now it's very there's a lot of Americans in there. When you
Yep.
turn on Karate Combat for the first time, it was like, what, are we there any Americans? And then like you'd see a couple and you'd be like, oh, okay, there's a couple. But what drew me to you specifically as an athlete was one, um, you know, obviously from America, strong Christian base, and then with Karate Combat in general, there's a lot less trash talking. It's a lot more, more respectful in general, which I just
Yeah.
appreciate as I've got a 8-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy, so sometimes I'm like, well, I shouldn't expose them. I don't really want to expose them to too much because there's a lot of like negativity around
Nah, I'm with you.
some of the UFC. But you mentioned how does Christianity tie into martial arts, and I've had that same exact conversation with my wife. Any other thoughts on that? I wanted to share some couple thoughts afterwards.
Man, I love it. I love the pursuit of maybe not perfection. That's what we're called to do. Pursue perfection. Obviously unattainable, but through Christ we could do it. But that's what I think martial arts is. It's a life changing thing. So at first, some kids they come into the gym, they want to learn how to defend themselves. Whether it's it's kind of almost that um, independence. I want to be able to be strong, and then more and more through martial arts, you understand that it's interdependence, and it's about really serving. It's about helping other people, and then you taking what you learn and trying to love other people, to look out for other people. It's not about the bullying or man. I think that's so the Christian walk.
Yeah,
It's first to be filled with the Spirit of Christ. To understand that you are forgiven, and you have this love, this Father that loves you so much, and He's looking out for you. And once you have that, and you have that safe ground, that foundation, you can start becoming better and becoming better, and that's great to become better. But I think even more so, the call is to feed the sheep, to go and to live interdependently, and to go and help and serve. And I think, man, that's a dojo. If you walk into one of my Muay Thai classes or my karate classes, you're going to see blue belts helping yellow belts. You're going to see brown belts helping green belts. It's really cool to see that kind of growth. And as honestly, becoming a black belt really just means you're ready to enough to really share and to really start your journey. But I mean, I think that, and ultimately that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to become stronger. We're trying to become tougher. Not let circumstances bother us. Not let stuff that happens bother us. Not let some rowdy kid uh, mess you up and feel like you can't. Hey, look, man, everybody needs something. And as a martial arts, I've never, other than church and really school, there's not many other places outside of a gym, a dojo, maybe OCR training facility where you go to get better. And I think that they correlate so much.
hmm
Going through the struggle to become a better person, to become stronger. It's just like I said, the same thing. Romans 5:3. Take joy in that struggle. That's what produces the endurance. That's what produces the hope, the character. Just like in the military, same thing. I love the connection between a true path, and the path is not easy. The road is narrow, and man, I can relate it so much to my path as walking as a Christian, and to be honest, how much it's helped me. Um, both sides, Christian becoming a martial artist becoming a Christian.
Yeah. No, I think you nailed it on a lot of the competitive sports and dojo training and all that stuff. I think you nailed it. I'm going to take a little different approach from combative side. So I'm like an assistant instructor under a brand called Tiga Tactics, which is focuses a lot more on like street self-defense. And I've done a bunch of readings with like Tim Larkin's book, When Violence is the Answer, and there's a couple other books that I've read on the topic. And they're talking about there's like social aggression, which is like people fight, posturing for position, whether it's like a bar fight or, um, and then there's asocial violence, which is essentially someone who's like physically out to like hurt you, like they're going to shank you, stab you. And they talk about how if someone thinks they're in a social aggression mode and the other person's in an asocial violence mode, how a bar fight can quickly turn into like a stabbing or a shooting. And kind of the whole point of it is like, unless your life is in danger, you should walk away, even if it means you lose face in front of your friends or your peers or whatever. And to me, that is like the epitome of Christianity, right? Like because people are fighting outside bars because it's ego driven, and
Hmm.
that's not a Christian behavior. It's you should be being humble, and you should not necessarily care what others are thinking about you in that specific moment. So to me, that all the combatives training and the ability to walk away from a fight because it's not worth the physical violence, it's not worth the emotional trouble, and it's not worth the especially in the 2020s, like legal and financial trouble that will probably inevitably follow and or retaliation from the other person. It makes it really easy to walk away from from bad situations. So yeah,
Yeah, man, I love the way you said that. That's it's a cool correlation that I haven't heard said. It was well said. I agree completely. That's
yeah.
so good.
What's funny is the guys who started Tea Attacks. I think the head one is, I want to say he's Buddhist. He's not even Christian, and they're like going through their process, their like thought process and all these things, and I'm like, this is like to me, this is like this is Christianity. Like
Yeah,
it's in there deep. But I'm not sure about the other one. But I think one of them is Buddhist. But it was he's peaceful, so
yeah.
it crossed over really well. And the other kind of interesting. So Tiga is Indonesian for three, which obviously like three has a lot of they use three in all of their teaching methods, but obviously in Christianity, Holy Trinity is
Yeah,
yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
that's
So
cool.
yeah.
Man, I love that. What
Yes.
is it that so tell me what is the art or how could I find out more about what you specifically are training in? What is it that
So yeah,
tricky?
I'll send you a link. So Tiga Tactics, it's so the we've got it was founded by two cousins. One of them they've both been training martial arts for like 20 plus years. They one of them Conrad's got like essentially the equivalent of like eight different black belts, everything from like jujitsu to karate to Muay Thai to like like combative sports. And the other one's got essentially four equivalent black belts. And they looked at all of these different martial arts styles and they're like, well, if I was going to teach something to my wife or spouse or even anyone, or what would I use in a real life situation? So they started just taking from all these different things they've trained and they started shaving things down and they're like, all right, here's a couple of online courses for, um, you know, basic self defense, how to get up from the ground, essentially edge weapons type stuff. Like, if you're in a situation, we just did a seminar a couple of weeks ago, an edge weapon seminar, which is, if someone's attacking you, people are like, oh, well, I'll just pull my gun or pull my knife and defend myself. Well, the problem is you can't pull your knife, you can't pull your gun if you don't have any sort of physical space and your life isn't threatened, right? So there has to be a way to create space, maintain space, and then before you actually counterattack. So they distill down all of these processes to like very very simplistic things, and then they over the course of a weekend they'll rep it a lot. So I've been to a lot of different seminars, and you'll go into a seminar, and a lot of times at like a different style of training, you've got like these super cool complicated maneuvers, but it's like, well, that was cool, but like I still need to rep that a lot in order to be able to use it effectively. When you go into one of their seminars, they will be able, like, you'll walk out a better martial artist or a better combative uh, person at the other end of the weekend because they only teach a couple of things, but they rep it repeatedly over the course of the weekend. So they've got online courses available. I got links all through my website in the fighting subsection for anyone who's interested in learning more. And then Josh, I'll send you some off to the side.
Heck yeah, man. I'm excited.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Sounds right up my alley. That's exactly how I like to teach too and move.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you got a family and busy trainings going on, getting ready for the big fight. So before we get going, tell us something people would be surprised to know about you.
Um, so uh so one thing I really like, I kind of have a little bit of a modern family. Parents were separated, but one thing I love, and I have my three little girls now, so I get to kind of relate to all of them. But at some point in my life, I was the oldest, the youngest, the only child, and the middle child. At least the one living with my parent, whatever parent I was at the time. So I really feel like that makes me kind of a dynamic dad a little bit. Now that I have three girls. I have one laying right next to me right now. But I love that because I really get to kind of um, relate to all of them. So I think that's really cool.
Nice. Good stuff. All right. Well, let's give a. Anything else we needed to cover? What did I say we were going to cover before we take off?
I don't think so.
I think those are the big ones. Okay, let's start wrapping it up. Um, any final shout outs you want to give friends, family, sponsors, etc.?
So man, I got a lot of fun sponsors. So I won't list them all because I can't list any because well, if I don't list them all, but just my family and my wife. Thank you. Right now she's in the other room. Where she's put the baby to sleep, kind of handling the rest. But I couldn't do this without her. So big shout out to Morgan Quayhagen, my wife, and Casey Quayhagen, who's very patiently laying right next to me, ready to get a bedtime story. So thank you, little Casey Boo. And man, I appreciate you, man. This was awesome. I enjoyed this.
Awesome. And for our listeners, you can head over to teamstrengthspeed.com. Got a couple of, if you enjoyed this episode, a couple of interesting stuff up there for you, for anyone who's listening. So my documentary, the 24-minute movie, is called Ultra-OCR Man. It is available right off the main page of the teamstrengthspeed.com website. $10. You guys can check that out. Bobby Ross did a lot of great work on it. It covers two of my charity events I did to raise money for Folds of Honor, kids whose parents were killed or wounded in combat. Please support that. And then if you want to know more about some of the kind of mindset slash that it takes to compete in ultra endurance, or some of my personal background in the military, some of my biography is Ultra OCR Man, also available on my website, hard copy, digital, and audiobook. And then my latest book is called On Endurance. So essentially I took podcasts from the last, 150, 200 or so episodes, pulled out lessons learned, and used quotes and vignettes into like a step-by-step guide on how to improve endurance. So anyone wants to check that one out. And then if you're interested in obstacle course racing, being competitive, the new Strengths and Speed Guide to Elite Obstacle Course Racing, easiest way to get that is on Amazon. If you want a signed copy, you can order off my website, though. And that is probably my best-selling book because it covers so much, everything from 5K OCRs all the way up to 24-hour OCRs and kind of workout plans and tips and nutrition tips and obstacle-specific tips, etc. That's the one that I sell the most of off of Amazon. All right. We're going to go. And Josh, thanks again for joining me. It was great talking to you. And plug the fight one more time, and we will share links of the weekend of the fight on the Strength and Speed page as well.
Yeah, man, appreciate it, Evan. I'm a fan, man. I'm gonna check you out more too. I'm excited to read your books. I'm a big book nerd, so I'm looking forward to that. So my fight, June 24th, Karate Combat YouTube, karate.com. Lots of streaming online. I believe they do have Facebook stream. You can find it if you just search Karate Combat. Me versus Agayev trying to take on the GOAT. So if you're around Miami, you should look into getting tickets. I promise you won't ever be disappointed going to one of the Karate Combat shows. It's just a party with some blood. But, it's all good. But yeah, man, I appreciate it, man. Much love, my friend.
All right. Well, all right, listeners, we will catch all of you later.